Curriculum for Dyslexia. Let us welcome Ms. Fong and Ms. Chua.
Okay, thank you, Hamada. Okay, so maybe just a brief introduction. So I am Pei, and this is my colleague Minqi. So we are psychologists at the DAS. So let's just get started. Okay. So today our presentation is on educational therapists' perceptions towards an enhanced reading comprehension curriculum. So the focus, the study was actually part of a wider study to evaluate the enhanced reading comprehension curriculum, where we looked at students' performances, and we also looked at we also surveyed educational therapists who were delivering the enhanced curriculum to find out what their perspectives were. So this particular study is actually based on that. So we are looking at perspectives of EdTESA. All right. Oh. Okay. It does not move here. Okay, so just some background, just an explanation of briefly what dyslexia is. So dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty identifiable as a neurodevelopmental disorder. So it affects primarily reading and spelling, the accurate reading and spelling, actually accurate and fluent reading and spelling. Sorry, I just started, a little bit nervous. Okay, next one. Actually, I'm not done with this slide yet. So just covering a little bit about the prevalence of dyslexia. So there are currently no studies on the prevalence of dyslexia in Singapore, but generally speaking, it's estimated to be from 4 to 10%. Okay, and why is it important to study this group of students? So students with dyslexia form the largest group of those with special educational needs in Singapore in mainstream setting. So it's really important that we look into how we are helping and delivering effective strategies to help them. Okay. All right. Okay, so at the DAS, what we do to support students with dyslexia is that we have our main literacy program. So that's the main intervention program for students with dyslexia. A little bit about the MLP. It is guided by the Orton-Gillingham approach, meaning that it is structured, sequential, multisensory, as well as emotionally sound. Okay, so the program is a phonics-based literacy program that targets reading and spelling skills, and we also target higher order reading skills like reading comprehension, reading fluency, and writing. Okay. So these are the components of our MLP curriculum. We have phonemic awareness and phonics, reading fluency, reading comprehension, vocabulary, and writing. So for this particular study, we have our focus on reading comprehension. Okay. So previously, when MLP first started out, the reading comprehension curriculum was actually not very structured. So not as well developed as the other components of the curriculum. So it was more generic in nature, and there was also a little bit of the strategies used were also kind of dependent on the educational therapist's discretion. And so our curriculum team sought to develop an enhanced reading comprehension curriculum, and so the rationale of this was to help with improve the structure, so that we have a system in place to align it more with the mainstream curriculum that our students are experiencing in schools, and also to equip our educational therapists with specific strategies that they can use to teach their students reading comprehension. And just a little bit more about the reading comprehension curriculum. It also targets listening comprehension skills for students with weaker language abilities, and to be a little bit more specific, it targets the development of particular skills in reading and question interpretation through things like text features as well as question types. So just to give you a brief understanding of what I mean by text features and question types. Okay, so on the left, we see things like referring expressions. So a dark shadow loomed overhead. Before long, the grizzly bear came into view. So in this manner, we see that the term the dark shadow is actually referring to, later on we can see the grizzly bear. And then we have things like conjunctions, like because, although, similarly. Those are words that join clauses together. Okay, and then on the right, we have the types of questions. So you have inferential questions, things that you can't really get the answer directly from the passage. And we have vocabulary questions as well. So things like, oh, what does this word mean? Based on and the student has to answer based on the context. All right. Okay, so just a quick comparison of what was happening in the previous curriculum and the current one. The previous one, we had more generic strategies, so things that you can find easily, and those kind of targeted more reading comprehension in general, understanding the passage. Okay, whereas now we have skill-based strategies differentiated for varying literacy abilities. So in terms of this, right, it becomes very clear, and it really helps the students kind of understand the questions that are being asked and those that they are encountering in school, and being able to use their skills in looking at the questions and looking at the passages to be able to successfully get through a reading comprehension task. Okay, next thing, we have materials. So there are a wide variety of reading comprehension strategies out there. What the curriculum team did here was to also develop a resource pack. So more specific examples of how these strategies can be taught. And guidance. So previously, the resources were used at Etty's discretion, whereas now we have training. We have large group training, we had focus groups, as well as continuing support by the curriculum team, as well as the educational advisors. Okay? So this is, going forward, is to kind of really provide the support that is needed to teach reading comprehension, which I guess we all know that is kind of tricky to do.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so as Pei have shared, right, the DS has actually undergone some revisions, made some revisions to our reading comprehension curriculum, and with any revision, with any updates, it's important to update the people who are actually delivering the curriculum. So in this case, our DAS education therapists, so that they understand what is going on, they know the changes, and they are able to deliver the intervention to its intended effectiveness. So as various researchers have highlighted, like Anderson, Durkin, etc., before teachers can teach their students effective strategies, they themselves need to be taught how to teach. That point was emphasized earlier in our panel discussions, so it's important to equip teachers with the strategies and empower them. Yeah. So in the literature on teacher training, so the researchers Richard Scalio and Renania actually surveyed teachers mostly from Southeast Asia, and they found that the top two sources of change for teachers' beliefs and practices were in-service training as well as seminars and conferences. So through those platforms, the teachers got to access new resources, got to learn new strategies, they got to meet together to problem solve the issues that they encountered when they were teaching. And then consequently, they found that those platforms of training created some change in the teachers' beliefs. So the teachers' beliefs of their learners changed, their teachers' beliefs of the importance of skills changed, their confidence level in delivering intervention changed, and their actual practices, the type of strategies they use when teaching, changed as well. Yeah, so from all this, we can see that in-service training is really important, especially when we are revising curriculum and we need teachers to be on board with the changes. Yep. So as with any change, not just changes in curriculum, it's difficult for people to handle the changes. Yeah, so we need to help them with it. So we can actually refer to Kurt Lewin's theory on change process. to help us better understand how people react to changes in general. So Kurt Lewin, specifically, he listed 3 stages of change: unfreezing, moving, and refreezing. So at unfreezing stage, really, we are helping people understand why change is important and necessary so that we get their buy-in. And it's going to take a while before people fully understand and they're convinced. Then after that, we move on to the moving stage where people start adopting the changes. So they start putting it into practice, trying it out, etc. And after some time, it's the consolidation phase, which is the refreezing phase. So that's where the organizations, at the organizational level, they implement the changes consistently. People use the new methods of teaching consistently as well. Okay. Also with, to help us better understand change, so basically at the DAS, when we revise the curriculum, we train teachers so that they start using the curriculum. What we want is really, we want what Smith, Hoffer, etc. term as integrated change. So when people meet with changes, they respond differently. Some people don't really react to it. Some people just change their thinking, but they don't change their actual behaviors. Some people just change behaviors, but they're actually not convinced. So what we want here at the DAS is we want an integrated change. We want teachers to believe that the enhanced curriculum is useful, is helpful, and we want them to actually adopt it in their practices. Okay, so basically, as PEI shared about our enhanced curriculum and I have shared about training, what we want to do in this study is to look at what our educational therapists here at the DS think of the enhanced curriculum. So we want to know what they like about the curriculum. Then, therefore, we can continue to use them and improve on them. We also want to know what they feel like are points of further improvement. So basically, we are still in quite an early stage. It's an ongoing process of refining the curriculum, trying to perfect it for our teachers and learners. And it's important for us to know the process, not just whether it works or not. We want to know why it works and why it doesn't. Okay, so how we conducted this study was, it actually spent 2 years. What we did was we actually surveyed our teachers before they underwent the training for the enhanced reading comprehension curriculum. So we sent out online surveys that the teachers were supposed to respond to via Google Forms. And then we surveyed the teachers again 1 year after they experienced the training and had experienced the curriculum itself. So we got about 47 responses from the teachers pre and post training to compare what they think about the curriculum, the old curriculum and the enhanced one. The teachers at the point of the first survey were about 35 years old, predominantly female, as what we know in this field. Yeah, the teachers have had a range of teaching experience from the very new ones, the very young ones, about 3 weeks, to those who are super experienced, like over 16 years of experience teaching students with dyslexia. Yeah, and we also wanted to know a little bit more about what teachers thought. So we sought qualitative information in the post-survey. So we asked the teachers specifically what they thought about the curriculum, what they like, what else do they think we can improve on. Okay, so on the left side of the screen, you can actually see the sample of the survey that we wrote out to the teachers. So they were supposed to provide ratings on a Likert scale, which were then coded. So we asked them if they thought the curriculum was relevant to teaching reading comprehension, if it's relevant to the mainstream English language curriculum, how confident the teachers feel in delivering the intervention, and whether they think that the enhanced curriculum is useful. So on the right is just a graphic representation of the process, so pre and post survey and the training in between. Okay, so a little bit more about what we actually did for the training. So here at the DS, we actually have a pretty large number of educational therapists, over 100 plus. Yeah, and what we did for our teachers to help them with the transition to the enhanced curriculum was we conducted mass training workshops over 3 days. So we gathered all of them. And then the curriculum developers, the trainers, they taught the teachers specifically what the skills were. Yeah, so here we cannot assume that everybody knows what every single skill means. And some of the terminology is actually quite vague. So like what PEI shared, referring expressions. If I were just to come to you and ask you, can you go out and teach your student referring expressions tomorrow? Without the explicit guidance, I think many people can't do it. Yeah, so what we had to do was we explained the skills, we gave them step-by-step instructions on how they can teach, and to make training more effective, there were hands-on practices. So the trainers went through worksheets, taught them how to do the teaching. Yeah, and as Pei mentioned as well, there was a curriculum pack that was rolled out to all the teachers, so there were sample worksheets and things like that that the teachers can actually use with their students here. Okay, so now Pei will take over and go through the first part of the results.
Okay, so I'm back. Basically, for this particular study, what we did, it was more like action research type of analysis. What we did with the responses is we did some frequency counts to summarize the responses. We also did some comparisons of the attitudes before and after the implementation of the enhanced curriculum. And finally, we attempted to do a little bit of analysis of the qualitative responses that were provided. So we'll share it step by step. Okay, so here we have the first part. If you recall, one of the aims of the enhanced curriculum was to make it more aligned with the mainstream curriculum. Okay, so on the left, the pie chart shows how the perspectives of whether the reading comprehension curriculum was aligned with the teaching of reading comprehension in general. And we see that 75.8% of the educational therapists surveyed agreed that the enhanced curriculum was aligned with teaching reading comprehension in general. However, when we look at whether it is relevant to teaching to the school curriculum that the students experience in school, it is also a majority of educational therapists that agreed that it was relevant. However, we see that it's not as overwhelming as reading comprehension in general. So there might be some gaps there that we might want to explore and address. Next one. All right, so the next one is the usefulness of the curriculum. We see quite a large number of the educational therapists feeling that the enhanced curriculum is useful for them to teach reading comprehension. Okay, so this one is quite straightforward. And now we have the comprehensiveness of the curriculum. So for approximately half of educational therapists surveyed felt that the curriculum was sufficiently comprehensive. However, what we see in the earlier slides, right, when we have more overwhelming response is around 70+%. So in terms of comprehensiveness as well, I think there might be some areas where we might want to explore to see where are the areas that can be improved. Okay. And then the ease compared to the previous curriculum. So we have, again, a majority agreeing or strongly agreeing that it's easier now to teach reading comprehension using the reading comprehension curriculum. However, we do note that quite a large number were kind of neutral about it, and then with a little bit, 3% kind of finding it a little bit difficult. However, I would like to add that, at this point, the curriculum was only rolled out for about a year, so I do think that, it does take some time before, people get used to a new thing. Okay. And then the confidence in using curriculum. So here we do see that there are, again, majority of educational therapists felt confident in using the reading comprehension, in using the curriculum. But again, it's around 50+%. Okay. All right. So now this part is the part where we compared the attitudes before and after the implementation of the curriculum. So we covered all the questions just now: usefulness, comprehensiveness, relevance, and also confidence. So after doing t-test, PET t-test kind of comparisons, we see that there is significant improvement in perspectives on whether the reading comprehension curriculum is useful, and we also see increased confidence in delivering the curriculum. So we are quite heartened to see that there are generally positive there are improvements in the perspectives towards the reading comprehension curriculum. Okay. Okay, So basically, with the numbers that I just shared, some key points that we might want to look into going forward is, first of all, the alignment with mainstream curriculum. Next one is comprehensiveness, and also the ease of delivery. So for this survey, right, we only see comprehensive, but we don't, so for example, we don't really know exactly what. So going forward, right, this is something that we want to find out more.
Okay, right. So as PEI have shared, I think it's great that for majority of the questions that we posed to our education therapists, they agreed that they like the new curriculum. So right now we are looking into the details. What exactly did they like about the curriculum? And most of them actually listed the explicit guide on instruction as the main thing that they like. So they like that the trainers, the curriculum team, break down the reading comprehension skills into different types and categorize them, give them a name. So now we know what referring expressions are. Then they also like that the strategies given were step by step. So basically, we taught them how to teach, and it made things a lot easier rather than them going out and figuring out how exactly should they teach the skills. Yeah. So for most teachers, I think teaching reading comprehension still remains a very challenging task, especially when we're working with students here at the DAS. So many of our students here, they struggle with basic literacy skills and they have poorer language skills. So trying to get them to understand referring expressions is really an uphill task. So I think the explicit guide really helps most teachers. And this is especially so for teachers who are less experienced. So like just now what you saw in the sample, some of our teachers are really new, about 3 weeks into the job. So they needed a little bit more hand-holding. Yeah, so many of our education therapists also like the materials that we provide. I'm referring to the resource pack. So they like that the materials were differentiated for our learners with different literacy skills. So for students with maybe weaker reading skills, there were more visuals, more graphics, and that was helpful. They also like that we give sample exercises that they can actually use. Right, so these are just some of the actual responses that our teachers gave when we asked them what they like about the curriculum. So they like that we introduce each skill and then we build up the teaching process. So again, a step-by-step guidance thing. They also like that our worksheets were sequential and cumulative, and that we use relevant activities. So no point if we give them materials that don't actually help with the teaching. Okay, now that we know what the teachers like, now we are looking into areas where we can continue to work on and improve. So interestingly, while many teachers say they like the materials, many teachers also highlighted that materials is one area that we need to continue to work on and improve. So specifically, they asked for more practices, which again, with our dyslexic learners, they need more time to consolidate and practice. They wanted more non-worksheet-based activities, so things that are more engaging, more interesting for students. They also wanted further differentiation of the material. So right now we differentiate for different literacy levels. They wanted it differentiated for different age groups, and to have more materials that cater to students who are in the foundation stream, the normal technical stream, as well as the higher functioning students, so to include more skills like summary writing, which is directly relevant to what they do in school. Okay, and the other point that teachers mentioned that they would like us to further refine on would be the comprehensiveness of skills. So while we have included a lot, I think there's even more in the realm of reading comprehension that we need to cover. So basically, more skills for the different ability groups and age groups. Okay, so we also asked the teachers on where else do they find materials if they find that what we have for them right now is not enough. So we found that our teachers are very resourceful, very creative, and they listed all these different areas that curriculum developers and trainers can look into to obtain more resources. So more real-life sources of information like online news websites and other online websites for worksheets and exercises. Okay, so just to wrap up, what we have shared here today is on the DAS reading comprehension curriculum. Many of the areas that we highlighted about what teachers like and what we can improve on are actually directly relevant to other curriculum outside. So for those of you who are experienced in developing curriculum, doing training for those curriculum, you'll find that your teachers might list the same areas that they like or don't like about the new curriculum. So generally for us, we found that our education therapists liked the curriculum. So in particular, they find that it's very useful to guide their teaching, and they express more confidence in using a more structured curriculum compared to the previous one. Yeah, but there are certain areas that we can continue to work on to refine our curriculum to support our teachers and subsequently have better results for their learners. So we need to continue to align our curriculum to the mainstream local school curriculum, as well as to improve on the materials.
Okay, so what can we do to investigate further on things like comprehensiveness, ease of delivery? So focus groups is one thing. We can try and find out a little bit more about the details. So if we're talking about comprehensiveness, is it specifically about the materials or other aspects of the resources? And it will be also good to kind of establish the link between educational therapists' perspectives and attitudes and connected to students' performances, and the connection as well between ETs, attitudes, and other individual factors such as personality. So that might also impact how they might feel about a new curriculum or how they might deliver it. Okay, and and I guess we can possibly follow up at a later time as well, because like what I mentioned with regards to being quite new, being 1 year into the curriculum, so it might be good to do a follow-up later on when people are a little bit more comfortable and getting used to the things that the resources that they are given. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the end of our presentation. Yeah, so just some of our references. Yeah, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you.